Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Good afternoon, everyone. Palak, you can start with the event for today.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you so much. So,
Hello, Nirnaya, can you hear me? Hello, ये देखो.
you're audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, good afternoon, Varyat sir.
Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam.
Yeah, there was some difficulty with the internet connectivity.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Sorry.
I think we can wait for some
Palak,
more
you
time.
can start with the event.
Palak, please start.
So we can wait for some more time because I think excluding us, there are 5 or 7, they'll join. Hello, Varyat sir?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
I think we can wait for some more time till we get.
क्या हुआ?
She's like, you can wait for some more time.
नहीं, क्यों? क्यों?
Wait.
Hello. 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 Hi, yes, Nidhi. I don't mind, but still, I think there are only 12 participants. Are you opening? So how many total currently? Okay, but why am I unable to see? Okay, fine. Okay, but is my voice audible? Just ask Palak. Because it is showing some remark. There was some internet connectivity issue. It happened in the morning also and now also. So anyways, just okay, fine, fine. Okay, fine. Thank you.
I am listening to you, madam. Now it's okay.
Okay.
Yes, Palak, you can start.
So, fun and on travel here. What if I tell you that in this divided world, there is something that unites us? And it is nothing other than the basic human rights that we've got.
I
Evolving
can't.
today in this global
Palak, your voice is not reaching me.
Please be little louder.
Loud.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah, little bit, not much.
Okay, I'll try increasing my volume. So, I'll just start and you can just tell me if still the problem exists. So, evolving today in this global economy, the concept of human rights conveys much more than what its value holds. We, the human beings, enjoy the results of economic development and share mutual understanding with each other, similar thoughts and common values. No matter what the origin is, the race or wealth of people, we all pursue the common dream that is of humanity, liberty, equality, and fraternity, and the right for each individual to have his or her dream come true. This is interesting, right? So I, Palak Tauri, welcome you all on behalf of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, for the webinar on addressing gender-based violence from the perspective of human rights. This has been organized by Maharashtra National Law University's Center for Research in Criminal Justice and an association for Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice. Thank you all for taking your time out for joining us today. So about the university, Maharashtra National Law University is one of the premier law institutions in India. The university has been established in the year 2014 under the Maharashtra National Law University Act, and it academic end of 2015. The university disseminates stable guidance and mentorship of university's chancellor, that is Honorable Mr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, and under the leadership of its Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dilip Uke. MNLU Mumbai also lays its emphasis on research projects, clinical exercises, legal skills and training, legal research and mooting by encouraging the students to represent university in the national and international competition. We have various centers that have been established in the college to conduct advanced research like the Center for Arbitration, Center for Information Communication and Technology, Center for Research in Criminal Justice, Center for Clinical Legal Education, Center for Maritime Law and Research, Justice, and also the MS Chair in Environmental Laws, and many more to continue. So, about the two centers that we have today, the CRCJ, or the Center for Research in Criminal Justice, this is one of them, was established to promote advanced national and comparative research and scholarship in the area of criminal law and criminal justice, criminology, victimology, and criminal justice are some of the subjects that are also included in there. The center was inaugurated by the Honorable Justice Mr. Naresh Patil and the Honorable Justice A.S. Oka uh, in the presence of Sri Ashutosh Kumbhakarni sir and other legal luminaries which from Bar and Academia on 13th January 2018. With many more objectives that the center holds, the CRCJ has successfully introduced two postgraduate diploma programs in the year 2021. One of the projects is in crime investigation, medical jurisprudence, and forensic science, and the second one is the postgraduate diploma in litigation, lawyering, and law firm management. The center also organizes criminal justice talks which are aimed to encourage the discussion between research, policy, and practice and to further to contribute to the wider public debate. This initiative is to explore various perspectives that have been given in the criminal law. The CRCJ quizzicals are organized every month for students across India and has undertaken research firm in the form of research projects in areas such as suggestive academics and criminal law, revisiting the law and policy of prison administration in India, and etc. Moving on to the second center that we have today is the CWCRCJ or the Center for Women, Child Rights and Gender Justice. This center was inaugurated on 8th March 2021 by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Ms. Supriya Sule. But uh, in this very short span of time, this center has worked on projects relating to shared parenting, educating children in the field of taboo areas such as menstrual hygiene, which was attended by people of all genders, as believe in the society as inclusive as possible. And this is what embodies the center's vision as well. The center is premised on the objective of establishing a culture of justice and a much free environment with an aim to build a vibrant space for everyone to dialogue and encourage them to get into discussions. The organization had also organized a 4-day event to honor International Women's Day, which was well appreciated for its very novel and innovative theme, which was held just yesterday and before. So today we have with us Professor Dr. Anil Variat sir, and he is the registrar of a college. So sir is the registrar of Maharashtra National Law University. He also serves as the director of the Center for Research in Criminal Justice and is also the chair professor and director of Justice M.L. Painter Chair in Environmental Law. Before joining the Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, he served as a professor, head of the institution, and deputy director at Amity University Law School. He also served as the professor, officer on special duty, and head of the Department of Postgraduate Studies at Maharashtra National Law University itself, Mumbai, and was in faculty charge and coordinator of SNDT Women's University Law School. Sir has appeared before the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the Clinical Establishments Registration Regulation Bill. So I now request the Registrar Sir to grace the webinar with his opening remarks.
Students ask.
Thank you, Madam. Respected resource person, the chief guest of the day, Professor Dr. Rashmi Oja, Madam. The students and the organizers of the webinar, rather I call the pillars of CRCJ and Women and Justice, Women and Gender Justice Center. It is a great moment today because we are having this program immediately after the International Women's Day. As you are aware, the place of women in the society is a critical factor in understanding and measuring the success and standard of a society. If you look into India's culture, we will find that we have always kept women at a higher position. In our culture, it is believed that man is not complete without woman. We have the concept of Ardhanarishwar, where it tells to the world that man and woman are not separate, but they are complementary and contributory to each other. And all the rituals, the religious rituals under Hinduism is incomplete, or it cannot be performed by a man without a wife. You may recall in Ramayana, even Lord Sri Ram has performed the Ashwamedha Yagna with Kanchan Sita, with a golden statue of Sita, because Lord Sita was not available. So that shows the importance of woman. Wife is known as Ardhangi in our system. So this is what the position of women we have in our society. Apart from the theories and concepts, you see what is the real position of women, the status of women all over the world had been a subject of heated debate and discussion. Throughout the world, we will find that there had been various social or legal norms everywhere, in all parts of the country, in the world, which have systematically denied women of their education, right to health services, right to economic opportunities, and right to their own self-progression. It comes at a time, see, there are evidences to show that women have learned and even practiced medical profession as early as in 2000 BC. But over a period of time, somehow, maybe because of the male dominance in the society, or maybe because of historical and other reasons, social reasons, women had been sidelined and given a secondary role in the family as well as society. So today's woman is totally different from the woman in the past. Today's women have multifaceted function, both in the society, in the family, and in the working space. So the activities of women have enlarged, manifolded. But the saddest part is that in spite of having all these activism, all this education, all this awareness, women all over the world, no matter whether you are in a developed country or a underdeveloped country or a developing country, women have to struggle for their space in their own life, in the society, maybe in the family, maybe in the a total system, and they are suffering a lot of gender-based, violence. See, it is not, I'm not mentioning only the physical violence, it may be psychological violence, it includes psychological violence also, along with economic deprivation of opportunities. A study conducted by UNO has revealed that the women constitute 2/3 of world's illiterate population. And it is also says that 80% of the refugees in the world, of course, because I'm not the person to say, because an expert in human rights will be speaking after this. So 80% of the refugees in the world are women. And out of the entire resources of the world, 1% of the total resources are owned by women. And 1/10 of world income is generated by women. See, that is the plight of the woman. So what I feel that what we require is we have to socially and economically empower women. Then only they can stand on their own feet and fight for their due in the society. So these webinars like this should make way for further awakening and further understanding, further, spreading the message that women also require to be treated at par with men in the society, or rather, I must say that little bit higher, because they shoulder more responsibilities socially and ethically in the building of a family, thereby building of a better society. With these words, I wish all the success to today's program, and I congratulate the organizers for choosing the subject and also choosing the right person to deliver the lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those kind words. So moving on to the key speaker today. So the key speaker today is Dr. Rashmika Oza, ma'am. So ma'am is a recipient of a gold medal for securing first class first in Master of Law degree from Mumbai University. She pursued her postgraduate diploma in the human rights from the University of Mumbai. He has been conferred with a doctorate degree on topic human rights and gender inequalities in India by the Mumbai University. Ma'am is the former head and professor, Department of Law, Mumbai University, and is currently the principal of Chamber Karnataka College of Law, and is in charge of the Professor's Chief Justice M.C. Chandler Chair, established in the Department of Law, University of Mumbai. Ma'am has to accredit publications for both national and international level. She represented India at the International Institute of Human Rights, Strasbourg, France, where she also completed the teachers training course in human rights. In 2003, Ma'am was awarded International Diploma in Human Rights with the distinction by the Raoul Wallenberg Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law. Ma'am was invited as speaker at the International Conference of Jurists for Judicial Reforms, organized by the International Council of Jurists and the Honorable Secretary of Lincoln's Inn, London, UK. Ma'am has coordinated the UGC-sponsored professor course in human rights at Academic Staff College, Mumbai, and 4 times. In April 2013, she chaired the session of the International Conference on Human Rights, Law, Justice and Governance, which was organized by the School of Legal Studies, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Central University, Lucknow, and also presented paper on international human rights norms and the domestic application. In February 2016, she also presented a paper, Child's Right to Survival, a relook into Indian laws and its working, at the international conference conducted by NIRRA. Ma'am is also a chairperson of the registered NGO, which is Human Rights Action Group, and conducts awareness programs in human rights, and she is also associated with various social organizations that are working for the cause of underprivileged and vulnerable sections of society, especially that pertains to the section of women and children. So, ma'am, these things we have encouraged us a lot, and we would really like to hear from you and love you to share your thoughts on this part. So, I hand over the mic to you.
May I? Thank you, Palak. Revered Dr. Dilip Uke, sir, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Maharashtra National Law University, revered Dr. Anil Warrier, sir, the Registrar of the MNLU, the faculties of MNLU, participants and students, a very good afternoon to one and all. At the very outset, I would like to wish belatedly by one day all present here today a very happy and blessed International Women's Day. To all the women present today and men as well, because women include men. My focus would be from an human rights perspective. And what strikes me first and foremost is when the universe was created, God created men and women, lo and behold. And the whole world started with ecstasies, thrills, pleasures, and pains. And to rationalize between pleasures and pains emerged the rule of law, which is the foundation of civilization and the soul of democracy. The year 2022, 8th of March 2022, the United Nations has framed the theme for the celebration of the International Women's Day as Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. When we say gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow, I think first and foremost is we need to understand is that there lies a difference between sex discrimination and gender discrimination. Sex is a biological factor beyond control of any one of us, whereas gender discrimination are socially structured differences, which is created by us Well, you're a woman, so these are the restrictions. Well, you're a man, so well, you have all the liberties and freedoms that you may enjoy. Well, you're a woman, that these are the expectations from you as a woman. You're a man, and therefore you enjoy a better privilege and advantage so far as enjoyment of your rights are concerned. So with this, when the year 2022 is being celebrated as Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav, and I'm sure various events are being, conducted all across India to mark Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav. We take pride when we say that, yes, we have completed almost 75 years of Indian independence. It's been more than 7 decades since the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. It's more than 7 decades since the Constitution of India was put in its place with all the identical rights. But today, on the 9th of March 2022, if I have to ask a question to myself, or if I have to ask a question to any one of y'all, how independent, humane, and peaceful life do the women of our country? I'm focusing on my country, India as a country. How independent, humane, and peaceful life do the women of our country live? I'm sure we read in the newspaper, we hear across the news channels about international trafficking. So trafficking is an international crime which has spread its tentacles beyond the territorial borders as such. So it's international trafficking, be a crime in the form of rape, molestation, a crime in the form of dowry death, dowry harassment as such, a crime in the form of acid attacks, a crime in the form of honor killings as such. I'm sure that has become the order of the day. So when I'm going to focus on gender-based violence, I'll be covering the gamut of violence, and of course, one that I missed out most importantly, which is not all that publicized in any of the medias, is the female, what we term as female circumcision, or FGM, the female genital mutilation, a very grave form of violence in many of the South African countries and other countries as well. So what could be the possible cause, behind these gender-based violence? So I'm not on sex-based, it's going to be gender-based, and gender is a socially structured. How do you perceive a woman? How do you construe a woman? And therefore, what is it that, you demarcate between a men and women, when gender is inclusive of men, women, and even the transgenders as late as April 2014? And what could be the root cause, of these gender-based violence? Adding to what Professor Varyat said, the patriarchal relationship, or what we in short term as the patriarchy, which operate through race, gender, class, ethnicity, and sexual orientation, are the factors which are directly responsible for perpetrating these gender-based violence. It may not be so just in our country. So let me tell you that to discuss all these issues, including violence against women, there were 4 major world conferences organized across the globe, and there were discussions, exhaustive discussions on various forms of atrocities, inequalities as against women. The very first conference, which was held at Mexico in the year 1975, with the theme equality, development, and peace. So it presupposes the fact that there are inequalities in the society all across the globe. The second conference in 1980 was at Copenhagen with the theme education, employment, and health. Now, health is a factor which is most neglected so far as women are concerned, and that could result in various forms of deformities and, the serious consequences which could prove fatal to a woman's health, eventually, which could result in death of a woman. In the third conference was held in the year 1985 at Nairobi, and it tried to analyze what were the outcomes of the previous two conferences, and it came out with an exhaustive document titled as the Nairobi Forward-Looking Strategies. And the fourth and the last World Conference on Women was a conference which was held in 1995 at Beijing, which came with an exhaustive document, the Beijing Plan of Action or the Beijing Platform of Action. Significantly, the year 1993 has impacted women with regard to exhaustive discussion on the rights of women, but that was not the conference which was exclusively earmarked to discuss women's rights, but it was a conference, Vienna World Conference on Human Rights, but it is more significant in context of gender because it is this conference which for the very first time made three categorical statements. One is rights of women are integral, indivisible, and they are inherent, inalienable, and indivisible part of human rights. Second is it had called the United Nations to have an optional protocol to a women-centric convention, that is CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is put in its place in the year 2000, yet India has not ratified the optional protocol. And the third demand it stated is categorically stating that the rights of women and girl child are part and parcel of their human rights, seeking or requesting the nation states to withdraw the reservations or declarations which are incompatible to this very women-centric convention as such. Today, if we have to analyze gender-based violence in the context of India, let me tell you that these violence or atrocities against women in the form of rape, which is a most heinous crime, in the form of molestation, in the form of stripping, in the form of eve teasing, in the form of domestic violence, which are within the four corners of the homes, like cruelty, it could be wife battering, it could be dowry demand, it could be dowry death as such, it could be nagging in such a manner which would force a woman to commit suicide. It could be in the form of female feticide, it could be in the form of female infanticide also. And slavery and trafficking are all the forms of offense, serious offenses, which cry out for redress. These offenses are as old as recorded history. And in India, we have often seen that the society condones it through silence, and many a times it legitimizes it through laws, customs, and at times court opinions, which many a times are blatantly discriminatory against women. Yesterday, I was addressing a gathering at the Hafkin Institute, and I was supposed to focus on the sexual harassment of women at workplace. And what struck me first and foremost is the Bhavari Devi gang rape case and the consequent judgment by a sessions judge, which attracted lots and lots of criticism when the judgment did not stand to any, forget legal reasonings, but even logical reasoning. That gave rise to a group of NGOs, filing a writ petition in the apex court in the form of Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. And consequently, we have a law of 2013, that's the Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. So it's not so that it is the Bhavari Devi gang rape case which led to Vishaka, and it is the Vishaka case which led to a legislation which is put in its place as such. Now, if this be so, there have been categories of women who face double barriers. One is there is a general discrimination with regard to gender as a class. Secondly, there are discriminations based on the race, religion, language, and the culture to which a woman belongs. Say, for example, indigenous women. They face double atrocity, say, for example, a physically or a mentally challenged women. There is general discrimination against women as a class. Within that, if I were a physically challenged or if I were a mentally challenged woman, there is double discrimination. For example, refugee women, just Professor Variet just made a reference, and if you just read the Human Rights Watch report, how rape is treated as a weapon of war, so far as refugee women are concerned, they are at a double disadvantageous position than any other person. Migrant women workers facing double barriers. Dalit women, significantly India, when it files its periodic reports before the CEDAW committee, it remains silent so far as Dalit women are concerned, and the CEDAW committee members questioned India as a state with regard to why is the report silent so far as Dalit women are concerned. So there is double discrimination where these prejudices, both the factors, they causing prejudices, reinforcing each other and causing prejudices, compounding prejudices against each other as such. So if this be so, what is the efficacy of law? Many a times, I'm confronted with people asking me question. For women, there are so many laws, and okay, what is it that they misuse the laws which are made for them? But let me tell, there could be stray cases of misuse by women, but the reports of NCRB reveals that the proportion of abuse of women is very, very high compared to a very small ratio of misuse by women as such. So if this be so, have law truly, the laws like the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005, protecting, women from sexual harassment at workplace of 2013, the POXO Act, which even protects a girl child as such, which came into force in the year 2000. What could be the efficacy of laws is something which we all need to introspect within when we are trying to analyze, or when I'm addressing gender-based violence, from a human rights perspective. It must be around 20 to 30 years back when there was a conference which was conducted by the IAWS, the Indian Association of Women's Studies at Pune. And they gave us the statistic only of reported cases. Let me tell you, when I'm speaking about the reporting of the cases of gender-based violence, we all need to know that out of 100% offenses committed against women, only 10% cases are reported and 1% ends up in conviction. That was the latest report even published in the Times of India, that the conviction rate has just risen from 1% to 1.5%. So that is a very, very sorry state of affair. What could be the possible reasons that 90% of the cases are unreported? Probably, to my understanding and knowledge, the reasons could be anything from poverty. A woman is not in a position to hire a lawyer or to take services or to reach out to the police station, seek her redressal before the appropriate forum as such, because she would require monies, stability, a financial stability to pursue her remedies. Or it could be fear of social stigma. That is what a woman of India feels very much concerned that, well, what would the society think? What would my family members think? What would the people around me feel about, and there is a fear of social stigma which inhibits or which causes an impediment in reporting of the cases. Third could be lack of evidence. We are all law students and we are aware that when we make a statement, statement, the onus is on us to prove that statement with substantial evidence, be it primary evidence, corroborative evidence, the supportive evidence, secondary evidence, whatever it be as such. There could be many other reasons, but these are probably the reasons which I feel which are worth, focusing on. When I told you that, well, we all enjoy the same rights within the most powerful document, that's the Constitution of India, the world's best and the largest constitution as such, you will find that, there is a grave similarity between the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 and the Constitution of India, which came into force in the year 1950. One document having just 30 articles within it, you will find as if the rights are picked up from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and they are added within the Constitution of India. Because the drafting committee of the constitution, if you just glance through the Constituent Assembly debates, they were highly impressed by the goals of protection and promotion of human rights and the mechanisms which the state establishes, for enforcement of these rights. So the very first, the preamble itself of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that whereas recognition, look at these recitals, whereas recognition of inherent dignity of equal and inalienable rights for all members of the human community is the foundation of justice, freedom, and peace in the world. So justice, freedom, and peace. If that is the foundation and if we are unable to recognize these rights, I'm sure gender-based violence would surely continue as it has been continuing. The very first article of the UDHR begins with these words: all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Can you shut the mouth of half of the world population? Women constitutes almost, it's not almost, much more than half of the world population. So if the very first article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, look at the words further. They are endowed with reasons and conscience, and therefore they should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. The chairperson of the drafting committee of the UDHR was Eleanor Roosevelt. And when a question was posed to her, why didn't you object to user of male-centric word like brotherhood? It could have been equally sisterhood in the very first article of the UDHR. Well, one needs to understand and know that the meaning behind it is to treat one another in the spirit of human beings. So all of us are equal human beings as such. And then India being a party to the majority of the international instruments, India is equally a partner to a women-centric convention, that is CEDAW, that is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which came into force on the 3rd of September 1981. India ratified the convention in the year July 1993, subject to certain declarations and reservations which are totally incompatible to the aim and object of that convention. So what are those declarations? And what are those reservations? Declaration in the form of social and cultural practices. Let me tell you today, when we are celebrating and marking Women's Day, well, these social and cultural practices are the grassroots of perpetrating gender inequalities and gender-based violence. Well, when you suppress, when you oppress a woman under the garb of social and cultural practices, the stereotype roles between men and women, here is where India needs to rethink on its decision of making a declaration in the form of Article 5A of CEDAW with regard to social and cultural practices. Another declaration legislation made by India was with regard to the compulsory registration of marriage, a woman having a right to choose whom she wants to have as a spouse, with whom she wants to have her sexual relationship as such, how many children does she want, what should be the spacing between children. Let it be her decision, because when we say right to life for a woman, well, it's a right to even bodily integrity and right to reproductive choices as well. Well, you know, that right to reproductive choices can have a very, very wide meaning. Maybe some other point of time when it comes to, I will focus my attention. Now, the steps taken by the United Nations in the year 2000, when, you know, we all celebrated worldwide as the millennium year, because we stepped into the year 2000. And the UN General Assembly adopted certain goals, trying to protect and trying to ensure that, you know, there is gender equality to be realized up to the year 2015. The year 2015 has passed. Then the United Nations adopted another 17 other goals in the form of sustainable development goals. And these 17 sustainable development goals are expected to be realized by the nation states by the year 2030. Are we going to reach, focusing from Indian perspective as such, are we truly making efforts? Is the state not accountable when goal number 5 is specific about gender equality? Speaking or focusing in terms of gender-based violence, I'm sure that forces us to deep introspection. We speak of sexual minorities. It was for the first time in the history of Indian judiciary that as late as April 2014, the judgment comes in the form of Nalsa versus the Union of India, when for the very first time recognition was given to a third gender, the transgenders. Please look at the daily newspaper reports where inequalities have further increased so far as the third gender is concerned. We have a huge population of transgenders. Are they treated equally? Are these provisions, Article 14, 15, 16, 21, 23, 24, 42, and 44? Of course, I have my own reservations with regard to Uniform Civil Code. But sexual minorities as well face much more gender-based violence as much as women do. Dalit women are those categories who are still subject to various forms of atrocities, and there is a double discrimination against them. So can we truly take a pride when we have the obsolete laws, and the Law Commission of India has off and on made strenuous efforts to, you know, repeal these laws? Let me speak of the Indian Penal Code itself, which is of 1860. Look at when, you know, there was a grave offense. When I'm speaking of violence, a young little tribal 17-year-old girl, Mathura, who was raped by the police personnel in the toilet of the police station. She was gang raped, and the Supreme Court gives a verdict saying that no, it's a deemed consent. This could open floodgates, you know, when a woman is not in a position to produce adequate evidence. It was thanks to the efforts by 4 law professors of Delhi University, Professor Upendra Bakshi, Professor Lotika Sarkar, Professor Vasudha Dagambar, and Professor Raghunath Kelkar, who wrote an open letter to the Chief Justice of India to review this apex court judgment. And there came, you know, the recommendation by way of 1983 amendment, which added the provisions of custodial rape within the provisions sections 376A to D in the IPC. December 2012 was another horror year when Nirbhaya physiotherapist intern was gang raped, and the most brutal attack was by a juvenile, and there was a Justice J.S. Verma committee constituted, most of the recommendations accepted, and then as late as 2013 we come out with the Criminal Law Amendment Act as such. Has it really served the purpose? Because I remember in the city of Mumbai itself, we had the Shakti Mills, case most identical to that of the Nirbhaya rape case. It was just about I think 10 days or 15 days back, I was at Pune at the Symbiosis Law School when there was a regional consultation on the status of women and how criminal laws need to be reviewed, and we need to have amendment within the criminal laws. And when I'm today addressing gender based violence, what the topic that was given to me just one day before the regional consultation was an exception to an offense of rape, that's marital rape. That's exception 2 to section 375. So in the context of marital rape and in the context of India trying to pose itself to be very progressive, ratifying the CEDAW Convention and being a party to majority of international instruments and coming out with an amendment under criminal law, why is there a stiff opposition to marital rape when we say, well, women are equal human beings having the same human rights which are inalienable, integral and indivisible part of a human women's personality as such? Why is it that women are commoditized in the form when there is a matrimonial tie, and it could be as if when we speak of right to bodily integrity and right to make choices as such, right to reproductive choices as such, why should it not be made a punishable offense? And this section, it's high time now that it deserves to be deleted from the statute book where this provision existed as early as 1860 as such. Again, a serious matter for consideration. Few of the cases which are important where the courts have taken a progressive decision, but when I'm very open about saying that in some of the judgments the courts have done a damage to women's right, to women's body, to bodily integrity, even when it has resulted in death of a woman as such. But two progressive decisions have been the Delhi Domestic Working Women's Forum versus the Union of India, and we have the second case of Shubhra Chakraborty's case where the courts have gone a long way, using Article 38(1) of the Constitution of India and saying that in cases of rape, the proceedings must be conducted in camera and open trial must be an exception as such. There is a dire need for Constitution of Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. It was in these cases that the court went ahead giving interim and permanent compensation, because we have heard of pendant like maintenance and permanent maintenance. We may not have heard. And when we are speaking of compensation to the victims of offenses, do we today have a law which regulates and governs compensation? We have the compensation theory to cover up the expense of a person who is alleged to have committed an offense, in the prison, with a very meager amount of compensation and some policies in the form of manodharya schemes. But to what extent have, women benefited out of these schemes is a matter of serious consideration. I think we need not just be shy about the position with regard to India, because I am as well an Indian citizen, and I need to understand this, that when we are addressing gender-based violence, it's a worldwide issue. When there are sophisticated developed nations like the United States, which has got their own laws, their own machinery, and which they claim to be effective. I have interacted with a CEDAW committee member and I have been informed that maximum domestic violence take place within the four corners of the home. When a woman steps out of the house, she's pit pat with perfect makeup on her face and a perfect dress style with stilettos on her legs as such, but nevertheless she's a maximum victim of domestic violence. So let's not feel shy about it, and let's focus our attention on the issues which are the issues which deserves a special and an immediate focus and an immediate solution as such. Because I'm sure Professor Variet just mentioned about, what is the role played by women in this whole process. So I think I must clarify with the official report by the United Nations of 1980, when we say that women constitutes half of the world population, they perform 2/3 of the total work hours, they receive only 1/10 of the world income, and they are owners of less than 1/100 of the world property as such. So how are we going to, if this be so, and if the gender gap is increasing, and if the violence is based on gender which are socially structured differences between men, women, and the sexual minorities as such, how are we going to cope up with this? Are laws going to suffice? Do we need to change our mindset? And I'm sure laws will not be in a position to change the mindset with which a human being is born and brought up as such. So we need to focus it from a very unless and until, and I remember the words of Justice Hospat Suresh, that late Justice Hospat Suresh, saying that there has to be a mass public agitation, in order to bring about a reform. This happened so in case of Mathura rape case, when the 4 professors took up the case, the issue before the Chief Justice of India, and it happened in Nirbhaya case when the agitation was not just in India, but it was all across the globe as such, which sensitized our parliamentarians to bring about changes within the law, and it's now put in its place with certain new offenses like acid attacks, stalking, voyeurism, so on and so forth as such. What could be the universe like if there had been no women at all in the universe? An author has very humorously stated that if there had been no women in the world, then there would have been no laws and also in-laws. A woman is created to civilize men, and laws are the first step towards civilization. So that is what is the significance given, and I'm sure we can even refresh our memory as to what Prime Minister, the very first Prime Minister of independent India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, had stated that let's not be happy and content with the freedom that we have achieved. We still need to awaken the nation because there are still other issues which deserves focus. And he said that we need to awaken the nation. To awaken our nation, it is the women who will have to be awakened first. Once she's on the move, the family moves and the nation moves. Whereas Manu, the supreme lawgiver, stated that na stri swatantra marhati. A woman doesn't deserve freedom. It's for men only, and only grammatically feminine as such. She has to be dependent on her parents, on her husband, and finally when she grows old, on her child as such, or children. Now, how much or what is the context could this such issues, when Manu, who has been the supreme lawgiver, would these ideologies stand to a better test in the current times, when today we have gathered ourselves to discuss this issue of addressing gender based violence, which I focused from a human rights perspective, having being a human rights student myself as such. I'm sure you will think and rethink over these issues. It's not just section 375(2) on which I had given my views. Many of the provisions are outdated, and it deserves a deep focus in order to ensure that those very provisions are not misused by men in order to get scot-free when they they on one hand perpetrate the offense and on the other hand the flaw or the lacunae within the legal provisions itself, bars the women from seeking her redressal mechanisms as such. So that is it that I could say. I have a meeting shortly hereafter. Should there be any questions, I think I can take one or two questions. But I'm indeed very grateful to the Maharashtra National Law University, Professor Dr. Anil Variat sir. Nirnaya, of course, because she has been coordinating with me since past quite some time for the 3 events which the MNLU and some other non-governmental organization had organized. And I'm grateful to all the participants who are present today. And I hope so my views were a little bit tough, but I'm sure these views would be accepted by all those who are present here, because you as youngsters can take the movement long ahead and ensure that, justice is done to women. When we say women and sexual minorities, and when we are addressing these gender-based violence as such. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. And I'm grateful to the organizers for this opportunity. Thank you and have a nice day. So,
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you. So,
Very, yes, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much, ma'am, for those thought-provoking words. And I'm sure that you've given us some food for thought, and we will surely look into it. And as you've said, the word woman itself contains men in it. So thank you very much, ma'am. Very much, ma'am. So I request if there is any questions, the floor is open. You can type them in the chat box or even unmute and ask them.
I think we can validly presume that my views are endorsed by all those who are present here. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah, thank you so much,
Okay,
Variat
thank you.
sir, and thank you, Palak, and thank you, Nirnaya, and please convey my regards to Kesar also, and thanks as well to Kesar.
Thank you.
Can I leave the meeting?
Yes, madam. Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. Good day to all of you, and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you, Palak, for effective comparing. Thank you.